I'm going to have a little mini rant later in this video, but I'm going to have a pretty sober look at some of the numbers around this card, and we'll talk about things like pricing. You can see here I've gone through the the providers of the reviews and kind of given a difference in comparison to the 5070 Ti. So the red bar is the 5070 Ti, and you can see here I've got everything else relative to it. So what was relevant was the 4070 Ti Super, which is the direct predecessor, and the 4080 Super. I think I wouldn't go comparing it to the 5080. Obviously, there's another 10 to 15 or maybe 13% advantage on in the 5080 versus the 5070 Ti. But you could see here that you were getting figures like sort of minus, sort of a 11 to maybe only 5 or 6% improvement over the 4070 Ti Super. But as it turns out, the 4070 Ti Super is 8.8% weaker on average, and the 4080 Super is on average 5.6% stronger. And that's at 1440p, including both raster and ray tracing. Now, what's interesting is that the 50 series was touted as being like this ray tracing powerhouse. There was going to be massive improvements. But when you look at the RT results, you'll see that when you compare them, actually the 4080 Super gains ground on the 5070 Ti. Not by a whole lot, but you can see here, when you look at ray tracing, the 5070 Ti actually loses ground on the 4080 Super. So that still surprises me even now, because I just thought, how could that be? But obviously the 4080 Super does, I think, have extra RT cores, so it does seem to have a little bit of an advantage there. If we move on to 4K, the story isn't that much different. Slightly more ground gained on the 4070 Ti Super, with 11.3% of a disadvantage for the 4070 Ti Super, and it gains a little bit more ground, just over 1% more on the 4080 Super. So it's in the ballpark of a 4080 Super, definitely. If you could get one at the MSRP, then obviously it, in comparison to the 4080 Super, would be good value, I think. But that's the big question, isn't it? So that's my summary. I think this is useful to kind of frame the discussion of pricing that I'm going to come on to now. I suppose it's a bit clickbaity, including Jack Nicholson using an axe to come through a door and to represent the madness of the whole situation. But as my message says here, the MSRP doesn't mean Jack, and that truly is the case. I don't think anyone's going to find one at MSRP. I've taken some prices that have been put up on Case King, which is a big German wholesaler, and you can see here the MSRP model, the Asus Prime, which should be at MSRP, which would be certainly well below €1,000, but it's listed here as 1149. You take off your VAT, you do a conversion to dollars, and it's almost $1,000. Okay, so it should be working out at around $750, or at least 30% more than that. If you look at the other ones, the Gigabyte Eagle OC and the Gaming Trio from MSI, those are kind of similar tier cards. They're kind of mid-tier cards. Those are coming in at about $1,200 MSRP. And I've seen a lot of other, the sites that list things at their proper retail price are certainly, definitely in the minority. So my message is, whatever you do, if you can at all avoid it. Now, I do understand that people have been waiting a long time, but by God, don't buy this unless you absolutely have an urgent need, like maybe your GPU has died or something and you've got no choice, and you had something like a 3080 or a 3090 or a 4070 or something like that, and you just need something that's at a similar tier or slightly better, then by all means. But otherwise, just forget it. You're not going to get one anywhere near MSRP. You're going to be gouged completely. It's got to be. I mean, it's got to be up there with the worst launches of all time. Um, so really, that's about it. I mean, what can you say? It's disappointing. It's not surprising. I don't even have to wait for the cards to go on sale tomorrow. Um, I already know what's going to happen. I think everyone knows what's going to happen if for whatever miracle there's a glut of cards and there's loads of them at MSRP, I'll certainly accept the egg in my face. But I don't think it's a risky bet to assume that there's not going to be anything available. So look, I'm not ranting too much. I'm not saying Nvidia are the devil or anything like that. But this is, it's tomorrow's going to be another bloodbath, just like the 5080 and 5090. I do think there's a huge pent up demand now, and a lot of people who are trying to get a 5080, I think, see that the 5070 Ti is maybe within 10% at best, and they're thinking that's not too bad. Maybe they passed over the 4080 Super, thinking that they were going to get something better in the 50 series, but now realize actually we just need to pull the trigger because I'm struggling with these latest games. I'm struggling to make 60 frames a second in these new releases on my 2060 Super, or my even my 2080 Ti, whatever I have, is starting to struggle at this stage. So not much of a rant. Basically, I'm just giving people a space on this video. If you want to go down to the comments and you want to get things off your chest, I'll be down there. I'll interact and I'll maybe try and talk someone down off the precipice, who's having a bit of a an angry time. But these are just bits of hardware. You don't have to buy them. I'm going to make videos on how you can enjoy what you have and look at things like graphic settings and so on. Because I think whatever you have, I think you can find an enjoyable experience, and you just need to kind of realize that. But anyway, sound off down below. Um, I suppose I'll have some more content like this, but I don't like to have too many kind of ranty sort of videos like this. But subscribe if you do like these videos. I have lots of other content coming up. I've just released a Linux versus Windows 15 game test, and there were very, very surprising results. So if you're absolutely sick of Nvidia, um, I've got a video that tests AMD plus Linux using the Bazzite version of Linux, and the results are actually quite astounding, really. When you see AMD on Linux versus Windows, it in many cases wipes the floor with Windows when you're using AMD. Not so much with Nvidia, but definitely with AMD. So do check that out. I will link to that video. But for now, I think let's keep this video nice and short. There's not much else to say, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.